We're back.
Whoa. Whoa. What? I'm, you know what? I wasn't listening for a second. What show is this again?
You know what? I'm glad you asked. I'll tell you. This show is... And let me tell you, it's an internet sensation.
So it's top 5. It's our top 5.
It is top 5
things in general.
Well, just well,
Rice Krispie treat.
This time, it's our top 5 personal favorite albums. Not
the Bella Twins.
What's that?
The Bella Twins.
Maybe.
I don't know. Let's just go. Let's move on with the show. So if you don't get the idea what the show is from the name, then you probably are on the wrong. I don't even know how you turn the computer on.
How are you on the internet? How have you not encountered anything like this?
When do you get out of jail? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
So the way we do this, we flip a coin. We're going to name our top 5 personal favorite albums of all time.
Now, why don't you tell us the rules we had this time?
All right. So obviously, my favorite rule is these are our top 5 personal favorite albums right now. This could fluctuate a little bit. You know, as you get older, things change, and my top 5 have kind of moved around a little bit. Mm-hmm. That's one caveat, but one of the rules is we can only list 1 per artist.
Yes.
We are not doing greatest hits.
No compilations.
No compilations.
No greatest hits.
No greatest hits. And we almost said no soundtracks, but I fought against that, and there's a reason why, and you'll see.
You did. You resisted it.
Yeah.
I didn't have a strong feeling either way. So I was like, all right, we can do soundtracks.
So in theory, you could put Saturday Night Fever in theory if you wanted.
In theory, you could.
Or Grease, or Jesus Christ Superstar.
Definitely no greatest hits or compilations, because I felt, tell me if you agree, an album is a work. Mm-hmm. And you have to do this hand gesture when you do it. It is a piece.
A collection.
Listened beginning to end. A lost art in the age of Spotify and everything else. The album is the so-called record. You go from track 1 and you listen straight through. No shuffle. None of that stuff. And that's the complete work. And that's something I consider.
That's why they call it an album.
An album. Is that why they? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
So...
all right.
Yes, and I like what you said about these aren't necessarily the 5 I have in rotation right now. These are my all-time great loves.
Well, we're going to flip a coin to see who goes first. That's tradition on the show because we did it.
That's right. And are we going to call the same every time or what?
No, being that you're hosting it, I will let you call always.
I always call tails.
And you're going to call tails. And we got to tell people that this episode of Top 5 is sponsored by Green Sharpie.
Wow.
Green Sharpie.
Wow.
Always bet on black.
That was a big get.
You want to mean green. So whatever that means. So
all right.
Here goes the coin toss.
Here we go.
Gary has tails, right?
I got tails.
Let's do this so it's legal.
What is it? Look, wait. I can't even make that out.
I'm seeing a head facing me.
So I'm starting. I'm getting this party started.
You're getting this party started, sir. Let's go. Top 5.
Look at this very professional,
beautiful
deck. Look at this. All right. I'm gonna get
Gary, before you show me your number 5 album,
yes.
How much struggle did you have with this one? This topic?
Similar to movies, I would say 4 and 5 were really rough. 4 and 5, could have gone a lot of different ways. I think right off the bat, I knew what my top 3 were going to be. I didn't know what order, and that's another area where it's rough. My number 1 and number 2 could swap easily. My number 3, there are a couple places, a couple other albums that maybe could have taken that spot. We'll get to that. But
here's some trivia. My number 5 and 4 did swap. So,
Really?
yeah. So I
I
flipped
was
them around to like
surprised.
that.
Now, see, I've seen your list. You haven't seen mine.
No,
And
I'm
while
curious.
I love your list, I was surprised by some of the ordering. So, but we'll get to that. So
Okay.
we'll start. Now this is definitely in the terms of like great album loves, this is the nostalgia pick. This is the soundtrack to my high school career.
Ah, even flow.
Pearl Jam 10. We got feedback last time. We should say what our thing is in case people are just listening. Now,
Okay.
and I'm glad you hummed a few bars because I was thinking because of YouTube copyright strikes, things like that, it's a shame we can't play samples from our albums.
We'll just sing them.
So please feel free just to sing a few bars of any of these.
Or if you're watching at home, just play a few notes from the internet yourself and feel like you're participating.
I hope you're at least maybe writing all these down to listen to them later on your streaming service of choice. So Pearl Jam 10. I was, when grunge made its way to Phoenix, Arizona, where I grew up, I was exactly the right age. I was exactly the right disposition. I was exactly the right skin color. I was exactly the right gender. I was exactly the target demographic for grunge. I was sort of a sullen teenage white boy. And boy, it hit me hard. Really hit me hard. Maybe somewhat controversially, Nirvana's Nevermind never really did anything for me. Like, I thought it was cool. I loved Smells Like Teen Spirit as much as the next person, but I didn't really care. That Pearl Jam 10, I fell completely in love with. I probably listened to this album twice a night for months, maybe even like a full year. I was obsessed with this album. It was the first album that I had bought that I just unequivocally loved. I had bought music before, but this was the first time I had an album I was nuts about. And I thought Eddie Vedder was just the greatest frontman of all time. I thought Pearl Jam was the best band of all time. I thought this album was the most interesting of all time. Now, obviously, you age out of it a little bit. Fever did break, but I've gone back and listened to it a few times. I listen to it once in a while for nostalgia. It is a really strong album. And I still do love it a lot. I can't relate to it as much. I think you need to be a teenage boy to get the most out of this.
Are there any throwaway songs on it?
I don't think so. And that's part of why I thought it was a pick for album, not just like favorite band or something.
Yeah.
Because I think I would listen to that thing all the way through and I wouldn't hit skip. Like I thought it was all just equally good. There were songs that I liked more than others, but there were none that I thought like, ugh.
Do you know what's the opening track? Do you know?
Oh my God. See, now this is the thing. I'm terrible with names of songs because unless you're sitting there and reading the liner notes, which was never really my thing, I don't know. But
it was also a thing in grunge to name a song that a one-word title that never appeared in the song.
Exactly. So no, to be honest, I'm not even going to try and sneak this. I don't know if I could tell you the name of the first song. I could hum it, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, well, the first song, I do know the first track. It was.
I know like exactly how the guitar starts on it. Yeah.
It was "Burn This Disco Out." So.
Was that it? That was it?
Yes.
I see now why I forgot it. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
So anyway, that is my number 5 pick.
Wow. Okay. That's a good one. That's a lot of people's number 1. As will many of our albums probably could be.
I'm hoping see, and this was something I said to you. I'm excited about this one, especially this episode of Top 5, because in my opinion, top 5 movies, if you list your top 5 movies, almost anyone who's into movies, your picks are going to be somewhere in their top 20 or top 30. I think there's a lot of overlap with favorite movies. Mm-hmm. It's not really like shocking to name some of the movies we named.
Yeah.
Music tends to be way more individual, way more personal, way more specific to the kind of how old they were, things like that. So we have no overlap in our list.
Yeah, and these are our personal favorite top 5. We're not saying these are the best top 5. These are the top 5 most influential albums. These are our personal favorite. Now,
I was describing it as like my great romances with albums. These aren't necessarily the albums I would listen to today on a loop, but they were albums that I had a great love affair with.
Huge caveat for my number 5. This album, Nevermind from Nirvana, barely, this album barely edged it out to be number 5, because that was going to be my number 5. Actually, at one point in my life, if you would have asked me, it would have been my number 2 album.
Wow. Well, if you'd asked me when I was 17, I would have said number 1 right here.
Yeah. But
followed closely by In Excess X. There we go. And it would have been a totally different list when I was 17.
Wow, that's good. We know that's not on there then.
That's not on here, but I had to think about it.
We'll go for our what honorable mentions after.
Yes, okay. I have a list of honorable mentions.
My number 5 is an album.
Are you ready for me to hit?
I'll go like this. When I was, I think, 12 years old or 11 years old when this album came out, I don't know. But my brother or my sister had the cassette tape of it. And I liked this group's previous work since I was 5 years old, 6 years old. I don't know. I mean, when I'd first seen them on Saturday Night Live as a 6-year-old, let's say. And I was fascinated with them. But when I heard this album, something clicked and it spoke to me at the right age. And I was like, this is the coolest sounding album that I could think of. And that album is, of course, Whammy by the B-52s.
Look at that. I was so impressed. I was impressed by your whole list. But as soon as I opened up the file to make this thing and saw this, I was like, this is going to be great.
Whammy
please share your love for Whammy with us.
Produced by Stephen Stanley, came out in 1983, right before, it's just at the cusp of the early 80s, had this real tight electronic drum machine kind of sounding with not a lot of echo. They didn't have the big 80s yet in the early 80s, like 81. It was more, they were coming off of the disco production texture kind of. This album is right at the cusp of when things are going to blow up big. But this is the first album the B-52s used a drum machine on. And it's a really a B-52s drum machine. It's very corny, very beat driven. And Ricky Wilson, the guy going like this, the late Ricky Wilson, brother of Cindy Wilson, right next to him, he was an amazing, inventive guitarist on all the B-52s albums, all the way up into Bouncing Off the Satellites. He passed away during the making of that. That was like 1986. But on this album, he shines. His guitar playing is very similar, if you're familiar with New Order, is very similar to Peter Hook, where they just play little parts, like almost like little James Bond riffs or little, staccato, little electric guitar parts. This guy was the best, and he shines on this album. Like his guitar parts, the word, as nerdy as it is, the word cool comes to mind because it's very much in the same vein as Devo. This album, the song "Whammy" Kiss is. It was probably my favorite track on the album. I found out later on that there were rumors that the song "Whammy" Kiss, it's really fast, and there were rumors that it was about cocaine, that Whammy was cocaine, but they said it wasn't. But I don't know. But
it could have been.
Queen of Las Vegas is another great song. Legal Tender, I think that kicks the album off. It's a great album. I listened to this repeatedly as a Ute. And
if you don't mind sharing, how Ute of a Ute were you? Like 1983, that's pretty early.
I think I was the way it works with the years. I think I was 12 and 13, depending on what time of the year. Towards the end of the year, I'm 13. Towards the beginning.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So Jeff, that's about the right age where you, I think, start developing your own musical taste. Everything before that is probably whatever you're just being exposed to. Like before that, all I cared about was 70s rock because that's what my mom listened to. So it was all like the Eagles and Fleetwood Mac and all that kind of stuff.
My parents listened to big bands, and I wasn't about to. I still to this day never cultivated a love for that really. But I respect it, but I don't, this when this came along, I'm like, this is my music. And I got into, by the way, I always say this. Some kids get into their older sister's makeup and dresses and things. I got into my older sister's record collection. So a lot of the bands I like are kind of new wave-ish, and they're very, a little bit femme. But that's just the music I like. I love that music, though.
Well, I've got a pick on mine that is very, very. I'm very in touch with my female side, I guess. You'll see. But,
as long as you don't touch your female side on.
Not on air. That's on my.
So yeah, so this is a fantastic album. What else? Trism. There's a song called Trism. I think this is the album that has a song for a future generation that has the lyric, don't you want to be the daughter of Dracula, the son of Frankenstein? Let's meet and have a baby now. It's a good album. I don't know. It has a sense of humor, but again, the production and the beats and the guitar on it is just, and the keyboards, everything's just really cool. That's the best. As a kid, I thought this was really cool. Like,
I don't know. There's almost never. I don't think there's been another band that's really done exactly what the B-52s did, or as well. Like, I don't even know, what would you even put in that same category? Like,
well, Devo, but not since that era. There has
Bare Naked Ladies, maybe.
No.
I don't know. I'm throwing things out there. Like,
because again, and the further you go back with the B-52s, the more true this is. They were very weird. They were considered weird, even at punk rock shows. Right. They were the weird, artsy, weird band, truly weird. And as they went on, they became a little bit more mainstream. This is about an album or two albums before they really blew up mainstream. Yeah. So this is, in my opinion, at their creative height, this is like the pinnacle of it.
This is their peak.
The album after this is really good too, but
that's
that one.
I was going to say this one or the next one.
The next one is really good, but Ricky Wilson died during the making of it. So, and he was like one of their main writers.
Yeah.
So but yeah, check out Ricky Wilson's guitar playing. By the way, his guitar strings, he took like 3 or 2 of the strings off, and he tuned it really weird. So you can't recreate it. When the drummer Keith took over for Ricky when he died on guitar, and he said he had the hardest time tuning because Ricky had his own method. And by the way, I think I had a crush on Cindy Wilson too as a kid.
Of course.
Yeah, she was awesome. So
yeah,
that's my number 5.
Excellent choice. All right.
Pearl Jam, number 5 again. I'm going to keep making this joke until we get this up.
Pearl Jam all the way down. Turtles all the way down. Pearl Jam 10 all the way down. Actually, next one's Pearl Jam 9. It's lesser, not as. Is that a dad joke?
Luckily, we have that rule. I knew it. I knew this would be on your list.
Did you?
Yes.
Tell me how you knew this. I'm dying to hear.
I knew there would be a Smashing Pumpkins album on here, and I thought, well, what's their big opus? And I go, well, it's Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness.
Yeah.
First time I ever heard Bullet with Butterfly Wings.
Yes.
For one, the title's awesome, but the first opening notes, I was driving home from work one night, and it came on, and I'm like, this is other level. Like, this band is on fire right now. Like, this is good stuff.
That was sort of my okay. So how I found Smashing Pumpkins, and specifically this album, I think it was probably my freshman. Yeah, it was my first semester at NAU. First roommate, first dorm living situation. You got free cable in the dorm, plugged in the TV, and it was like MTV all day long. The only time we took it off MTV was like if you'd go to the Weather Channel to see like how cold it was going to be tomorrow, because it snows up in Flagstaff. But otherwise, it was just basically MTV all day long. It was right when the video for Tonight like exploded onto MTV. I don't know if anyone remembers the video, but it was
the moon.
Yeah, it was basically their thing of a trip to the moon. And it was shot that way. It was very flickery, and it had like moon men, and they're all dressed up in sort of steampunky outfits and everything. And it blew like my roommates and my mind. Like we just thought this is the coolest video we've seen in forever. And I liked it well enough where right around that time, my student loans came through, which means you get this deposit of a few $1,000s in your bank account that you're supposed to make last till the end of the semester. And of course, I was a semi-responsible college kid where it's like, okay, no problem. First things first, let's hit Target and Bookman's and buy all sorts of shit I don't need. So I was like, well,
your heroin dealer, second thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like now finally can get that new Legend of Zelda game. So I went and immediately sought out, like I loved the video so much. It's like, I want to see what this, well, it's a 2-disc, 28-track, massive thing. And it has, I thought the cover art was great. And I was like, this is cool. Popped it in and was blown away. It was my first exposure to what I would call a magnum opus album. 28 tracks. I felt everyone was good. I felt it flowed. Like you could start from track 1, disc 1 to track 14, disc 2, listen all the way through. And it had like a flow to it. And I couldn't believe they just seemed astonishingly talented. Like where you were saying Whammy could have been B-52's peak. I think this could have been Smashing Pumpkins' peak. Like this is when they were at the height of their powers. And I remember thinking, if their tour bus rolls off a cliff tomorrow, on the way down, they've got to be thinking like, well, we left everything on the court. Like, I mean, like this scene, it has everything. It has really angry, edgy rock. It has more lyrical stuff. It has purely instrumental stuff. It has kind of soft, easy listening. Like it flows from track to track through all 28, I think, perfectly. It really is a remarkable piece by a band, a weirdly talented band, and I think the peak of their...
And one of the most underrated guitarists in rock is Billy Corgan. He's a great guitarist. And if their tour bus did go off a cliff, it would become a Morrissey song for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But no, I loved it. And the only reason this one wasn't bumped higher, I thought about it placing higher. Pearl Jam 10 was always going to be number 5. The only reason this isn't higher is similar reasons why Pearl Jam 10 isn't higher. You do start to age out of a little bit of the material. I think you kind of have to be an unhappy younger person who's like, the world is all very unsatisfying to me, and so I'm angry about it. Like you kind of have to have a little bit of that attitude. I think for things like Pearl Jam 10 or Nirvana, Nevermind, or Smashing Pumpkins' Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness to land with maximum impact. And I think I have, probably for the best, aged out of it a little, which is why it's not like number 2 for me or something. Right. Number 4. Yeah.
Yeah. I got you. We're just old men who love music.
Yes, exactly.
Which is the new name of the show next week.
We got.
All right, let's move on. Let's go to my favorite number, which is 3, right? Yeah. Okay, my number 3 coming up. Wait, before you play it, before you show it.
Your number 4. Number 4.
Oh, sorry, my number 4. Yeah. Okay, number 4 was going to be number 5. Was B-52s were going to be my number 4, but then I really started thinking about it, and this album, there's such a magic to that's the best adjective I can think of. This album, there's a magic to it. You talk about somebody being on like another spiritual plane. It's just everything that touches this album has its stank all over it. And this artist was in such a zone and so ready to explode that this album was just like vibrating with energy and a style and a sound. And this album is, of course, Purple Rain.
Okay. I love this choice. I am shocked it's not higher. Like I thought for sure, like I had a feeling you would have maybe Purple Rain on here. And I thought like it'll be like his number 2, maybe even number 1. I don't know.
At some point it could be the only reason this one's not higher in my because my top 3 albums are very they were there for me. No, but they're very they're ingrained in me. Like they're just the top 3 are like just part of me. They flow in my veins. This album, I had a friend in high school. His name was Keith, and he kind of looked like Prince, and he loved Prince so much. I liked Prince. We're talking, this is before Purple Rain came out, 1999. But Keith was into Prince back in Controversy and Dirty Mind and all that. And the first time I remember seeing Prince is when I was 7 years old or something like that. He was on American Bandstand, and he was "I Want to Be Your Lover" when he had the pressed hair and stuff. And of course, as a kid, I just thought, this guy's freaky. Like, I wasn't like, yeah, this guy's freaky. But as a kid, you're like, what's that? You know? And then I knew the name Prince. And then when I found out my friend was such a big fan of him, I mean, like, that guy. And then 1999 had come out and all of that stuff. And it was all over MTV and everything. And I still thought, well, it's that same guy from that. And the singles from 1999 I thought were okay. And when Little Red Corvette and 1999, I thought they were, at the time. Now I look at their classics, but at the time I thought they're okay. So anyway, so Purple Rain comes out, and there was, remember, I don't know if you remember, but there was a lot of hype when Purple Rain came out. Like, this was the new thing. And I remember it was kind of dirty. Like, I wouldn't want to buy it and play it at my house and hear my dad hear me play it. So
I know what you mean. Just
it was almost like an R-rated album, you know.
Yeah.
I would go to my friend's house and hear it, and it was almost like we discovered a porn or something. It was like, oh my God, you're really thinking about?
That's how I felt when the When Doves Cry video was playing. I felt like I was trying to see Skinamax through the squiggles at night. Like, I felt like if someone walked in, I had to switch off.
Yeah, and then there's also, at that age, there's also the whole thing of, like, when you're watching Prince get out of a bathtub or when touching himself, it's like, is your dad gonna go, hey,
like,
Gary, you want to have a talk? You know,
what you watching there, son?
You know, why don't we go throw the ball and have a talk? Which I don't think that talks like that, but in my mind he does. So
you realize that's not how boys dress, right?
Oh, my dad was a fireman, and my uncle was a fireman. You'd hear the things they'd say about
I'm sure.
Michael Jackson. It was wonderful. So anyways, but yeah, it was, I mean, my favorite track on the album is Computer Blue. But back then, when I first heard Purple Rain, my favorite track was a little song called Darling Nikki. That's the one that hooked me. And that's the song that made me a Prince fan, Darling Nikki, because it's such a beautiful, it's every adjective. It's beautiful, dangerous, cool, sexy, funny. It's just the best. And that, when I heard that, I was, Keith, you have 1990. He had every Prince album. You have 1999. Can I borrow it? And I went home to listen to 1999 in my head, like, because every song that's not a single on 1999 is a masterpiece and better than the singles that were released, in my opinion. Like, there's a song, Irresistible Bitch. Well, I think that's a flip side, but I don't know. Anyways, that's an amazing song. All the Critics Love You in New York is so good. Like, all of those songs are just so good. And so then I dove into his catalog, and it just kept getting more and more into his music. And Purple Rain was the catalyst for that. But every track on Purple Rain, in my opinion, is a masterpiece. Here's the one downside, and here's probably why it's not higher.
Okay.
Because minorities. No, I'm just kidding. It's because.
Well, good night, folks.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
No, it's because these songs, that album, there's 5 or 6 singles on an album of, like, I don't know, it has like 9, 10 tracks.
Yeah.
Those songs were played so much on the radio.
Yeah.
So you were just bombarded with them.
Yeah.
And I, for a long time, was like, when they play Let's Go Crazy, I'd be like, like, you heard it so many times. The one that in my opinion broke through with that is When Doves Cry, because that's such a masterpiece and so different than anything.
So good.
It was so, what an amazing song to release as a single. No bass guitar on that song, by the way.
Oh, really?
No bass guitar on that. Nope.
Interesting.
There's a version that they released with bass guitar. They didn't release it, but you can find it on the internet, and it doesn't sound as good. There's no bass guitar in When Doves Cry.
And now I have to listen to it again.
It's so good. So good. It's
so good. And honestly, I have to admit, I think I never had the album. Mm-hmm. So my exposure to Prince was strictly through videos again. And when I first saw When Doves Cry, I was probably just a little too young. where I was like, who is this guy? Like, what is, look, he's naked, he's in the bathtub.
Yeah.
What is this guy? Like, I mean, it was just like, it blew all my circuits. But it didn't take long. I think certainly like after a couple years, I was like, this guy is awesome and that song is awesome.
By the
And,
way,
you know,
in,
like,
in Purple Rain, Prince is basically Batman. I don't know if you realize that.
yes, right. Yeah.
The Minneapolis Batman.
But I think he was, just from my musical experience at the time, a little too much for me at first. Like I had to, it's like when you hear stories about the first time people heard, you know, some rock band or something, and they're like, "Ooh, what is happening?" You know, and they're like, I was a little confused by him at first.
Yeah, the first time I heard Captain and Tennille, I was like, what do I do? What do I do now?
Yeah.
All over.
Same.
No, it's grown-up music for childhood years when we were kids.
Right.
These were grown-ups. These were grown-ups that were doing the nasty. So
they were. Well, certainly Prince was.
And one day I will too.
Someday. Cross your fingers.
All right. So now we're gonna get favorite number 3. So
number 3. This is my
let me visualize what it could be.
Confession time. Okay, do you want to make a prediction? I don't think you'll get this one, but if you do, you know me better than I realize.
Okay, go. Number 3 for Gary is
number 3.
Oh shit.
Oh, did you? Oh my God! How did you?
This is not a magic trick, folks. This is
did
real.
You write like 5 different bands and musicians?
Oh
and
my God!
Look at you! Look
Jerry,
at you!
I'm wondering. I've known you for a little while. I'm wondering if you would take this ring and.
Look at that!
Wow! I think I know you.
This is why we're doing a show together.
Holy crap! That was good. That's the only word I wrote. Tori Amos.
That's a yeah. So I had to struggle with which Tori Amos to plug in here. I knew I was 95% sure she was my number 3. I did briefly consider Fiona Apple. When the Pond. Because I feel like they occupy a similar space in my musical heart, you know. Yeah. But ultimately, I had to go with this album. Wow. It was a toss-up. Like there were a couple that were contenders, but this to me, well, I definitely have a soft spot for soulful kind of emo singer-songwriter acoustic girls. Hence Fiona Apple, hence like Sarah McLachlan, hence like there's a few that I'm like, you know, that I'm into, or more recently like Angel Olsen, stuff like that. This was Tori's first album where she did a little bit more of the electronic stuff. And that hit me just right. Like where I liked a lot of her previous stuff. I loved Little Earthquakes and all that stuff. But this was the one where I was like, okay, I'm bananas about this album and I'm going to listen to it all the time. I was a little tempted to pick To Venus and Back, which I think is the follow-up to this. Similar, but I think there are more tracks on this one that I love more. It was a tough toss-up, but this is the one. Also, where I think, I hate to say it, we're around the peak of this artist's stuff. She's still working, she's still great, but like this is about the era where I thought this was at least most interesting to me. I was most responding to.
Yeah. But, wow, that was a good psychic moment, right?
It was a pretty good, yeah.
Friends. I don't know. I just had a feeling. And I'll be honest with you, I never got into Tori Amos.
Yeah.
She's of my generation, but I only things I'm familiar with her are the ones that they play on the radio. The ones. So never. Fiona Apple, yes.
Yeah. I think, Fiona Apple I knew from MTV. Tori, I actually think my mom led me to Tori. Because she was nuts about Little Earthquakes.
Yeah.
And she just made a remark once when she was listening to that album and said, this woman is so good at writing about being a woman. And that was sort of intriguing to me, where it was like, okay, well, I'm kind of curious what that means.
Yeah, yeah.
And I say this analogy half jokingly, but also therefore half seriously. Oh, hold on. Look at that. Um, I think a lot of young white suburban kids through they learned something about the urban Black experience from listening to hip hop, you know, like that, and that was part of the appeal. It like gave them a glimpse into this whole different life. I think in a weird way, it's equal to like people like Tori Amos were like my sort of glimpse into what it's like to be at least one kind of woman, like sort of a, you know, a mildly unhappy white woman, but like it was interesting to me. And it kind of like opened my eyes to sort of like what that experience was like. And I think that was part of the appeal. It was sort of like, oh, this is like being able to like peek behind the curtain a little bit.
This isn't the one with the hits on it, is it?
No.
That's Little Earthquakes, right?
I think so. Yeah.
And that's the one that had what's it, girl? Her big one of her big early hits, Something Girl.
Yes. I'm gonna find it right now.
Cinnamon Girl. No, that's it. While you do that,
yes,
I'm gonna evoke
just for okay. So Little Earthquakes. The tracks were Crucify, which all of these, and this is maybe why Little Earthquakes wasn't a contender for me. The same reason you said that Purple Rain got bumped. All of Little Earthquakes got played to death.
Yeah.
Crucify, there's Girl, Silent All These Years, Little Earthquakes, of course, Me and the Gun. Like it's all these, it's like they were just played all the time. And I loved them, but I think that somehow like just made it not as interesting. Like you just hear it too much. Where this one, I don't know if I ever heard it played anywhere. I don't know if it was on MTV or VH1, but I had the album because I was into her and I loved it. So
can we call Corey Amos from now on?
We can.
Okay.
I'm fully for that.
Right.
Totally, yeah.
That's it's right, fits right in where locks in place with what I kind of pictured in a good way.
That you had like Kreskin.
I know. That was so weird. That
was pretty. I can't wait to see if you can.
David Blaine proof right here.
I want to see if you can do it 2 more times.
No.
Let's go to your number 3.
All right. My number 3.
You give me the word when you want to reveal it.
Backstory. My number 3 album was a game changer because I was 12 years old when I saw this group.
Just a quick note, Mary Jackson is outing me.
Right.
There we go. I picked my alarm music very intentionally, but anyway, go ahead. So,
all right, this group, I was 12 years old. I saw them. I don't know what it was, some kind of concert at like midnight on a Saturday night or whatever, and Friday night, and it was some filmed concert. And I had heard of this group because I remember as a kid walking into a record store by my grandmother's house in Whittier, California, or La Habra, California. And this group, their first album was pretty big, but they were like super new wave. And there was something scary about new wave when you're a little kid. It's just, it's like grown up, weird adult. This album came out and again, this to me was grown up music. And then my sister had the album. So I was like, this is a chance. Oh, she's not home. I'm going to listen to this album.
Nice.
And from the first to the last track on this album, I'm like, wow, I really like this. And again, made me go back into the first album, got into that. By the time I got into that, the third album was coming out, and all the girls in high school loved this group. So it was perfect timing. So this is Duran Duran Rio.
I love it so much.
Best album cover, one of them ever, by the way.
Yes.
Patrick Nagel. And this album, the production on it's really good. Oh my God, who produced it? It was, I don't remember, but I think he died. But anyways, by the way, one of the things that really, really got me into Duran Duran was the bass playing on the album. And the bass player, John Taylor's probably my favorite bass player. Just plays all the right things, and it just really brings a song to life. So that really was like the key that got me in. And then the other thing that got me into was the guitarist, Andy Taylor, like the way they played together.
Oh,
that was really good. And and then the keyboards were amazing, and I don't know, it's kind of like there's something to be said about charisma. Like this band had a lot of charisma,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of copycat bands. There's a lot of they weren't a boy band. I mean, they were boys.
No.
They weren't like a boy. They wrote and played.
The girls loved them. Every girl I knew in school loved them, but they weren't like a boy band. No.
So I was a little freshman, and all the senior girls loved this album called Seven and the Ragged Tiger that came out, and I had it as well. I think I had a cassette, but I knew all about it. And I remember one day in art class, the really pretty girls, dude, they were talking about, oh, I think they're gonna play the Forum coming up. I know Debbie got tickets, but I couldn't get in there. They were just, and then one of them goes, "Oh my God, I love that one song called, I don't know, something about In the Shadows or whatever." And I went, "Shadows on your side, perhaps?" You know, and I was, and they were like, "Yeah, yeah." And I was like, "Well, did you know that also Tracks in the Pavement is about you're yearning for the," and it's like, I just knew all the songs and everything. And that was kind of impressive, but
Right.
get away from me, dork.
I'm sure I listened to Enjoy the Silence 1,000,000 times.
Well,
Like,
that's a good point, but that's not on this album. That's
I'm sorry.
group.
I'm sorry. Oh no. I was
group. But
I might have had a vision.
We digress. But yeah, if you want to hear some amazing rhythm section,
yes.
There's 3 Taylors in this band. They're not related. There's a keyboardist, Nick Rhodes, really amazing sounding. There's nobody else in any rock group or pop group that matches the sounds that Nick Rhodes puts on an album. I don't know where he buys his synths from, but they're really great. And then Simon Le Bon, really, in my opinion, one of the most underrated lyricists, because his words make no sense, but they're really cool. I mean, the Reflex, go look at the lyrics on that.
What does that mean? Right.
And you'll know, nobody knows. But
nobody knows.
But anyways, this album really showed me that style and presence and just confidence and a lot. It was the right album for the right time. And this was a gateway drug for me. So I got into a lot of their other stuff and became a lifelong fan. Probably one of my favorite groups.
It's a great pick. And what I meant to say was Hungry Like a Wolf. But
yes. But you digress.
But
just keep on digressing.
Yes. All right.
So Gary, I'm gonna turn it back over to you. We're on number 2 now?
All right.
Ooh, I could guess if I had to. Let me think. Could I guess?
Can you guess?
No, I couldn't. I used all my energy to get that Tori Amos.
If you were gonna guess, would you happen to guess Beck Sea Change?
No. Wow.
Look at that.
God.
It can still be a little unpredictable.
Such a good album. I just introduced that to Lee. Leanne's a big Beck fan through me. But I introduced her to this like a week ago. It's so funny that you picked this.
Obviously, my favorite Beck album, since we're limited to 1 per artist. And I love Beck. Yeah. I love him. But this is my favorite. Now, this, for anyone who has not experienced Sea Change, this was famously written after he had been his fiance of like 9 years. Like it was revealed that she'd been sleeping with some other musician and she left him.
Yeah,
and he wrote it right on the heels of that
album,
and it sounds like it.
Yeah,
it's the soundtrack to recovering from a breakup. That's the best way to summarize it. And my nephew, who's 6 years old, when he's like 18 or 20 or whatever, when he's coming off his first real heartbreak, not like a breakup, not like, little high school breakup. I mean, the first time he's really had his heart broken, I'm going to be getting him a copy of Sea Change because I think it will help him through this difficult time. It is beautiful. It really is, like the especially, and as an album played in order, the soundtrack of going through a breakup emotionally. There's shock, and then there's anger, and then there's pain, and then there's a little bit of acceptance just at the very end. You would think something like that would be cringy. You would think it would be maybe a little adolescent, a little eye roll inducing, and it's not. It's just beautiful. There's nothing mean spirited in it. There's nothing snarky or kind of lame or, childish in it. It is just a guy who watched his world blow up, and he's just trying to figure out how to adjust to the new reality. And it's really, really kind of amazing to listen to, especially knowing that he's writing it from an honest place.
Yeah. Yeah, it is like a totally heartbreaking album. It's one of his best. A lot of times I confuse Sea Change with Mutations with the songs that are on each one. Like, for example, I think Nobody's Fault But My Own is on Mutations.
I think so too.
And then I'm trying to put my finger on which song is on this album that I like a lot. That it sounds like that. I guess moving on. I don't know. Again, we listened to it last week. It's so good.
It's great. And again, and this was something that I thought about.
Yes, I'm Doing Fine. Isn't that one of them?
What's that?
Yes, I'm Doing Fine.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I'm Doing Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the production on it's really sparse and great.
It's really, especially. And what's funny is when I first encountered Beck, I couldn't tell. The first thing I heard from Beck was the whole, I think Where It's At.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the video, and I didn't. Here's another one that I think I just.
You remember? You didn't see Loser?
I don't. Somehow I missed all that.
Oh, wow.
But I think just like Prince, I wasn't quite ready for him. And when I saw the Where It's At video, I wondered, is this like a Weird Al thing he's doing? Like, it seems so silly because he's like this little dorky, shaggy-haired white guy. He looked like me, and with like a turntable and kind of like doing like scratching a record. And I was like, this is a joke, right? But then I got to like Devil's Haircut and stuff like that. It's like, oh no, this guy's legit. Like,
this guy's he's so good. We just saw him over
good. But then this dropped, and I was like, okay, he's awesome. Then this dropped, and it was so different from anything before. And that's one thing I really do like about Beck. Not so much anymore, but I felt like at least most of the beginning of his discography, if I pronounced that right, each album is very different. Like, it has a different feel. It's all very clearly Beck, but like Midnight Vultures is very different from Odelay, which is very different from, and very different from Sea Change. Like, he was really mixing it up each time.
Yeah. By the way, Beck, my number 8 album would be, of all time, would be The Information.
There you go.
Every song on that. Well, there's one of them. It's like a noise track. I'm not crazy about, but every other song on that album is up here. This album is an amazing choice. Wow, for your number 2 as well.
My number 2, and it could have been number 1. I did think my 1 and 2 were like shuffling back and forth. You
are very emotional.
It's true. It's true. Just saying that makes me want to cry.
Wow. This is on a scale of 1 to 10, this album is a 9, in my opinion.
It's a great album. And like I said, I would, especially if someone's going through a heartbreak, I'd recommend it. You just listen to this album. It's all going to be fine. Drink a glass of wine, maybe a whole bottle. Listen to this album. It's all going to work out. You'll come out on the other end. It's okay.
I love it. That's welcome
to a big club of heartbreak.
Great choice. I'm a huge Beck fan. Yeah.
Oh, he's great.
All right. For my number 3.
All right.
My number 3
or number 2.
Oh, sorry. My number 2.
We're close.
Is, in my opinion, the most re-listenable album ever recorded. It always sounds fresh every time you hear it.
Yes.
Every track on it is great. Every track on it written by one man who, in my opinion, is a genius and one of the genius songwriters of our lifetime. And also, the production choices on this album were so interesting. This album came out in a digital age, but it's recorded on analog, actually. That's a trivia fact.
Really?
produced by Flood, who had come off producing U2's Octung Baby. This band was already on a high, having played the Rose Bowl, selling it out, filming a movie in the process, conquering America and the world.
Yes.
They had a follow-up album that people were dying to hear. Once people heard it, it was like our generation's Sgt. Pepper. And that is Depeche Mode.
Which I spoiled a little bit, and I apologize.
Okay,
but
people don't know. We played it off.
An amazing pick. I was so delighted when I saw this.
Yes.
I was just like, gosh, that was an album that really did. It could have been somewhere in my mix. Like, had I really.
So their previous album, Music for the Masses, was, I mean, if you talk about personal albums, could have been my number 2 easily.
Yeah.
But I had to pick this one because this one is it aged well. It everything on it, it's just right. You know what? This album has like a sparseness to it too. This weird space to it.
Tell me if you agree. I feel like you could release this today and it would do fine. Like if you had never heard of this or anything, it would play where, for example, Rio, people would say this is some weird 80s throwback thing. Like, what are they doing? Like this, you could play this off as like, this is just some new artist.
Although good is good. So
yeah,
you release Rio today, it's still going to be a hit.
It's still great. It's still great, but people will say like it's got an 80s sound.
Well, I don't know. I know what you mean. This is more timeless. This is more very quiet album, but loud too. It's just the cover actually is a really good representation of the album because it's very spacious and sparse in parts, and it's a great headphones album. But it doesn't use a lot of tricks of the time. It's really, really, and you take the songwriting of the genius that I had mentioned as Martin Gore from Depeche Mode. You take his songwriting and then you apply the production of Flood and another member of the band, Alan Wilder, who's heavily involved in producing this. They hit a home run. I mean, it's a great, sleek album. It's a really sleek, but it's also very, very lush at the same time, which is a weird combination. And listening now to some of the things on there, I think it was a lot of the instrumentation they were using. They were coming off a really big bombastic orchestra sound with Music for the Masses, which was this big blaring, orchestras of horns and opera, and then they went to this real quiet sounding kind of Kraftwerk vibe, but Kraftwerk in the city, kind of a very cool city vibe to it. And I don't know, it was a great album for a great time. I mean, I was just getting into my 20s at the time, and it stuck with me. This album really sticks with me. My favorite track on this album is a song called Sweetest Perfection.
Yes.
Sweetest, not Swedish.
Not Swedish. That's a different.
Yeah, I also love Halo. That's another one of and World in My Eyes. They're all Clean is the ending track on this song. It's an opus. It's a huge, big, dramatic song. That's another. I mean, it got Waiting for the Night to Fall. That's everyone knows the two big singles because they're two biggest, probably two biggest songs. Personal Jesus and Enjoy the Silence. I remember hearing Enjoy the Silence when it first came out, and a friend of mine heard it and was really angry and disappointed. I'm like, why? It sounds like a disco song, all the percussion, and and I'm probably in the minor, but I enjoy hearing Martin Gore singing more than Dave. I'm probably gonna join you there. I'm a big Martin Gore fan. In fact, I made a playlist of all just Martin Gore songs. Here's another thing about Martin Gore too. When we do our list of favorite guitarists of all time,
oh boy!
Ironically, I'm going to put Martin Gore is going to be in my top 5.
Really?
Yeah, because he is. It's not about. It's just about being, for lack of a better word, tasty. It's about being really like, wow, that's a really cool part. That fits the song so well. Or being able to play like wow, you're really filling up that song, but you don't sound like you're just beating the guitar.
It's not like Eddie Vedder, just like, yeah.
Yeah, you know Eddie Vedder.
Yeah, Eddie
Get
Vedder.
out of here. No.
Give me a break.
No, but yeah, I'm a big.
Or, I'm sorry, Eddie Van Halen. I'm mixing up all my names tonight. I meant Eddie.
No, I said Eddie Vedder, and I meant it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't
No,
think
Eddie Van Halen. There's he crosses those boundaries. He's it's just a really, really great album. Again, I will say the two biggest songs, especially Personal Jesus, I've heard enough in my lifetime.
Yeah.
It doesn't diminish how great they are, but I can move on from those. Enjoy the Silence has a little bit more shelf life with me, but all of the other songs are just insanely good, and it was, to me, in my opinion, the last classic lineup of Depeche Mode. It was their last greatest moment. The album after this actually sold more.
What was the name of it? I picture the cover. The green cover,
Faith,
right?
Songs of Faith and Devotion is their biggest. I think it's their biggest selling album to this date. But to me, it's absolutely not my favorite of theirs. This is my favorite. Followed closely by Music for the Masses. Followed closely by Black Celebration. And yes, I'm a Depeche Mode
fan. Wow. All right.
All right.
All right. All right. Well,
enjoy the silence.
Enjoy the silence.
Okay, here we go. We gotta wait. Before we play,
Gary's number one album.
Can you remind me what show they're watching?
Oh, I think they should. They should. People, just in case you just somehow.
If you don't know.
All right. Here we go. Let's just jump right into it.
Gary's number one. Also, you want to say something before you show it?
Oh, I'm going to say something before I show it?
Say something before about this album. Build up the tension.
Okay. Well, first, I'm going to say it's not Steely Dan, Chris. It's not. It's not.
Is it Asia?
It is not. It is not.
Is it Aha?
This album was compared to the so this band had one of their biggest albums ever. Huge. They were following it up, and it was the follow-up, which is my number one, was compared to when Dylan switched to electric. It was a little controversial. It was a little polarizing, but I think with time and sort of letting the dust settle, it was kind of like the Last Jedi of this band's albums, where it was like, what are they doing? What's happening? But I think with time, people are now recognizing this is 100% their best album.
Is it Maroon 5?
How did you know? That's amazing. It is Radiohead Kid A.
Oh, wow.
It's gotta be Radiohead Kid A.
Do you really think it was that? People were that shocked?
Yeah.
It's the best album.
Because I remember
the best album. So wow, what a great choice. What a great choice.
A Radiohead album.
What this is
90% of the time it's going to come down between OK Computer and Kid A. Like, those are the two.
Kid A will always have everything in its right place.
Yes.
One of the greatest songs ever recorded. Period.
OK Computer will always have Paranoid Android.
But I'd still pick everything in its right place over that. That song.
I mean, this is why this is
hypnotic.
Oh, look, here we go. Chris Ward. See, Chris and I are blood brothers too. Like this, so he gets it. So no, this one, it is a tough call. And I love OK Computer. I really, really love it. And if we weren't limited to one, my top two would be OK Computer and Kid A. Probably Kid A number one, OK Computer number two.
Really? The top two Radiohead albums?
Wow. I think so. I think because Radiohead, I think, is probably, if we did like the favorite bands, Radiohead would probably be my favorite.
Just have How to Disappear completely on it?
I believe so.
I listened to this album a lot. This reminds me of my time. I used to work at Earthlink, and this was the soundtrack to that. Wow.
It was, yeah. And I found it, I get why people weren't into it, because I get, like, it was such a deviation from OK Computer. I think there are hints of this in OK Computer. It shouldn't be like a total shock, but it's very much its own weird, like OK Computer to me is like the ultimate greatest, most refined example of what Radiohead had always done, and basically is still very much just alt rock. Now, you can't, it's tough with just when you're talking about a computer, but it's just to me like the best example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Kid A, I felt like, was a whole new world. It was hypnotic and weird and beautiful.
Yeah.
It was so different. And I am happy to say, look, there's lots of bands. I've been wrong about it first, that it took me a while to get. Kid A, I was hugely in the tank for Radiohead. I got Kid A, I think, immediately, threw it in the CD player in my car and drove home listening to it.
I did too.
Immediately loved it. Immediately was just like, this is the most beautiful, weird, dreamy sounding, interesting music I've heard in forever, like ever,
Wow.
It absolutely blew my mind.
Can I share a memory with you?
Yes.
Imagine this.
Okay.
I'm driving home, Pasadena Freeway. I put the CD, well, it was a bootleg. I'm sorry, Radiohead. I put the bootleg Kid A CD in my car, hit play, have the volume cranked. It starts pouring rain. It's like a gray day, and it's pouring rain, and I mean pouring rain where your windshield wiper can, and traffic's moving super slow.
Yeah.
And everything in its right place starts playing.
See,
and it was like I was transported to another planet.
It's not something I say lightly, but it's a magical listening experience.
It's great.
Like,
Yeah.
There's something about it that's just kind of mesmerizing. It was, to me, again, I did think about bumping up Sea Change, but ultimately I was like, no, like at the end of the day, Sea Change is just the best breakup album of all time. Kid A is like one of the greatest albums of all time.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't, like, I have to, and the reaction I had from it is, my appreciation for Beck's album is kind of state specific. It got me through heartbreak. Like, it makes me remember tough times. Like, it makes me remember those feelings. Like, it's very specific. Where Kid A makes you think about all sorts of, like, it's the closest probably definitely I've ever come to tripping. Like, it's just a weird experience to listen to it.
Yeah.
You can listen to it in a dark room when you're a little tired and you're sipping whiskey and it's like loud.
Every song on that album, you feel like you're joining a story in the middle of the story.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're joining the story in the middle and you're going backwards. It's just insane.
I've seen this and I'm gonna check it out. The story, for anyone interested, digging into the story of the making of Kid A is really fascinating, because it was a slog, and they were racked with doubt the whole time, as like, this is a weird direction we're going in. But it was, it's well worth it.
Wow, that's fantastic. I'm going to listen to it tomorrow.
Do it. Yeah, you'll love it. And this is one that never gets old. And there's something about these songs, even though I've heard them a gazillion times, they somehow never get spoiled. They're always sort of fun to listen to.
Always different. Yeah.
And I will admit, once, now I can't even believe I'm revealing this, but who cares? We're all friends here. I'm not a huge fan of the marijuana. I don't like how it plays with me. But the best experience I ever had was when I had just the right amount and listened to this album. And I had that magical experience you hear about, where it's like, I could just see it all in my head. I could feel like I could see how the sounds and everything were layered. It was just, but this is, to me, like the perfect kind of album for that. It's the perfect kind of music for that.
Never tried it. I've heard of it.
Kids don't do drugs. But if you happen to accidentally do some drugs, and you happen to accidentally have Kid A ready to go, and you happen to accidentally have set up the room all nice, where maybe you've got some string lights and you have a nice drink or something. Now I think, like, you're in. I
thought you were HOC. Anyways.
Just see. I don't know.
High on Christ.
Oh, well, now I am.
All right. But anyway, this album is, you hit a home run. You hit a home run out of the park. Home run.
I felt good about it.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Album.
Now, before we move on to your number one, as long as we're sharing stories, I'm going to reveal another sad thing. When I was, I think, in 8th grade, there was a girl I knew that was way into Depeche Mode.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I misspoke around her, as I have several times in this video tonight. I said, oh yeah, Depeche Mode, they're awesome. And she immediately, she was horrified, and she was like, no, it's Depeche. And I just flat out bluffed her. I was like, no. It's actually, in Europe, it's pronounced Depeche. Because I was a stupid fucking kid. So Heather, if you're out there watching, I'm sorry. I have no excuse. I knew you were right, and I just tried to play it off because I was embarrassed. All right, now let's back to you, Jim. Back to you.
Whew, okay, number one album of all time. I'll tell you a few things about it.
Yes.
Number one is the soundtrack of my life, literally.
Wow.
It is. It's for sure the first album I ever got my hands on. It was an 8-track tape that my older brother had, and when he would leave his room or go to school, that's how little I was, I would put it in, and I just put it in, and it would start playing, and I would listen to the whole album. I knew every song on this album by heart. There was one song I'd skip because it scared me. It'll make sense in a minute. There's a lot of songs on this album, a lot, and I think this would be a lot of people's, maybe a lot of people's number one.
Yes.
I know this wouldn't be a lot of people's number one of this group's catalog. Mm-hmm. There's a certain other album that might be that one. But this album has the most variety. This album was made during a lot of contention. It was contentious times.
Yes.
But there's also a lot of just beauty on this album. There's a lot of the production on this album is my favorite production on an album probably ever. And it's really meat and potatoes production, but that's why I like it. Not because it doesn't sound produced. It's not like they just plugged stuff in and started playing, because that could sound really flat. And it's because to make something so plain sound so vibrant, it's just there's an energy about it. The producer.
That would be very revealing.
Masterful. I love this album. There's so many songs on this album I love. And this album, let me give you a hint. Here's what the album looks like.
Yeah. That's right, everybody. You guessed it.
The Beatles, the White Album. It's just called The Beatles.
This is a Stone Cold classic, best album of all time pick. Now,
again,
I'm going to press you a little bit. My brother is a huge Beatles fan.
Uh-huh.
If he was here right now, he'd say, not Rubber Soul?
No, not Sgt. Pepper's either. A lot of people would say Sgt. Pepper's.
Really? Okay.
And those are great. Yeah, Rubber Soul would probably be my third favorite Beatles album.
Okay. After Sgt. Pepper?
No, after Abbey Road.
Oh.
Yeah. Abbey Road, by the way, we're getting on a tangent here, but it's the Beatles. We can.
Chris, you gotta look
at they're really good. You actually check out Ringo Starr's solo stuff first. Right. Enjoy that first.
Yeah.
But Abbey Road has the same energy as we were talking about Kid A, but when a group's just on, it's their last album.
Yeah.
But everything just worked perfectly on that album, Abbey Road. This album, they did multiple takes of multiple songs, and it's pieced together, and it's just, there's so much like rawness to it, but it's recorded so well. The drums sound better than any Beatles album I've ever heard. The bass guitar on this album, it just blew my mind, especially Paul's pick bass on this. It's just so chunky and great. And John's guitars and George's guitar, it's just amazing. Everybody had a shot to do whatever they want. It's a double album, their first and last double album. My favorite song on this album is my favorite Beatles song. And ironically enough, it never changed because this was my favorite as a kid too. And this will say a lot about me. You'll understand. Happiness is a Warm Gun was my favorite song as a child. I had no idea I
Sure.
asked my Uncle Abram when they say, I need a fix because I'm going. I was like, Uncle, what's a fix? And he told me, it's drugs. So they're drug addicts. I was like, okay,
Oh,
chill out, all right.
wow.
No, but
Sorry I asked.
I love that song. And then my other favorite song as a kid, more appropriately, but still very dark, is Bungalow Bill. I would sing that a lot as a kid. And again, not really understanding the
Yeah.
context, but I just love the songs on this album, and I love the era they were in, and I love that it was my childhood. Again, another trivia fact. This, as I just said, was the first album, 8-track, that I had ever heard before anything else. And it's for years was the first Beatles album. Like when people were talking about the Beatles on Ed Sullivan or the Beatles this or the Beatles that or Beatles, I would be like this, the group that sings,
Right.
Honey Pie. I never heard Sgt. Pepper's and never heard Rubber Soul, never heard any of that stuff for years, about till I was probably in grammar school at least. And this was the album. This was like my nursery rhyme album. This album and Jesus Christ Superstar. Those are two albums I knew by heart. Yeah.
It's a great pick, a great classic pick.
Yeah.
And this is.
Yeah, I'm a huge Beatles fan. It's that, like Josh would say, hot take. It's a hot take. I'm going to say this. I'm just going to say it. I think probably the Beatles are probably the best group in the world.
You're just going to put that out there. You're just going to boldly proclaim, just like I boldly proclaimed Radiohead.
I know I'm going to get a lot of feedback from this, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. Sorry, don't mean to start any internet drama, but the Beatles.
By the way, I'm just right now realizing
pretty good.
I realize that there's comments.
There is lots of comments. We've got some active commenters.
Wow.
And Dry Sushi predicted some of our choices. He's got
what?
Some Radiohead Kid A on there. He is the White Album. Yeah.
Wow. Wait, go back. I want to see more.
Sorry. Beach Boys Pet Sounds.
Frankie and the Valley. And Frankie and the Valley. Frankie Valley and the Four Seasons. That's great. Yeah, he did. Pet Sounds is good too. That's good. Wow.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
People, whoever's watching, we would throw out your
yeah. This is the time
now. Right now, because now I think it's time to do some honorable mention, some runner-up stuff, right?
Okay, let me give you a couple.
Rattle off a few. Give me a few.
I said The Information by Beck.
Yes.
I said Seven and the Ragged Tiger by Duran Duran.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Aladdin Sane by David Bowie. Although there's two David Bowie albums I really like, Aladdin Sane and Ziggy Stardust.
Of course. Yeah.
So those are about equal with me. But what else? There's an album called Look for the Rainbow by Astrid Gilberto. It's bossa nova. It's so good. It's so good. It's one of my favorite albums of all time.
Totally unfamiliar. Completely 100% unfamiliar.
Also, my wife and I share this favorite. Sheryl Crow has an album that was produced by Rick Rubin called The Globe Sessions.
Oh, really?
And it's a great album. Every song on that album's fantastic as well.
I'm intrigued because Sheryl Crow is good, and I'm a huge Rick Rubin. I discovered him late. Like, I was aware of him, but I really kind of got interested in him in the past few years.
Speaking of two more Rick Rubin albums, I gotta say, Blood Sugar Sex Magic by the Chili Peppers, one of my favorite. John Frusciante is a guitar god to me. He's awesome. Yeah. And their latest, Unlimited Love, their latest album, Unlimited Love, has made my top 20 list.
That's shocking to me.
I love every song on the album.
I haven't heard it at all. I'm just shocked that they could put out an album that would.
It's stuck like glue with me. I really, really like their latest album that much. Wow. It's really that good, in my opinion. Go ahead and think of some more, and I'll think of some more honorable.
Okay. Well, obviously I mentioned OK Computer.
Are people throwing theirs out there? Anybody?
Not yet. Oh, let's see here. We got Black Messiah by D'Angelo.
How about Fear of a Black Planet by Public Enemy? That's a good one. That was another one of my favorite. That's the Sergeant Pepper's of rap.
The Sergeant Pepper of rap. That's a great. Well, let's see. I mentioned In Excess X. That was another nostalgia pick. That was, and that was actually the first live concert I went to. Was In Excess.
Wow.
So that would have been like my freshman or sophomore year of high school, probably. So, but as much as I loved it, it didn't like blow my mind like Pearl Jam 10. So that's why it was kicked out.
I said Nevermind, right?
You did. I think you did. Yeah.
And I know a lot of people like In Utero more than Nevermind. I like Nevermind. I think Nevermind's the best rock album of my adult lifetime.
Oh, look, this is interesting. Darkness on the Edge of Town, Tom Petty. Wildflowers, Tom Petty. I thought about Tom Petty a lot when I was trying to build my list.
Yeah, Wildflowers is amazing. That's another Rick Rubin.
Is it really?
Yeah.
God. Steely Dan.
You know what? I always say this too. Steely Dan, Donald Fagen, one of the most underrated vocalists. I mean, people think of him, the lyrics and all that stuff. I think his voice is great. I think he has a great voice. Unusual and great voice. Here's another, Chris, you're gonna love this trivia fact. I can testify to this. Did you know that a lot of cholos like Steely Dan?
What?
Yes.
Why?
I don't know, but there's a lot of this going on to early Steely Dan. I've seen it. I know it's true. So
you learned something.
One day a documentary on this.
Chris, how did you know that, Chris? Like this is fascinating.
Yeah.
And like Frank backing it up. Cholos love Steely. What?
That should be the name of our show from now on.
That's a thing.
Cholos love Steely Dan. Yeah, it's one of there's several mysteries in the world. Black holes.
How did they build the pyramids?
Yeah, who killed Kennedy?
Right.
And why Steely Dan is so popular with Cholos. That's beautiful. I think that they love it. It's a bridge somehow. But yeah, early Steely Dan. Yeah, for sure.
Amazing.
Yeah, isn't that great? Wow. Watch, I'll go find a Cholo real quick.
What's that?
I'll go find a Cholo real quick.
Go drag one on, please.
I love Steely Dan. Steely Dan's like my favorite group. You know what I'm saying, man? I love them, man.
Okay.
They're as bad as that dude Led Zeppelin. He's bad too.
Right. See, it's right there. There's no arguing with that. That was very clearly a real Cholo. Very obviously. Let's see here. Yeah, this is what's funny. I was aware of this. Like you used to use Steely Dan as a punchline.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I realized like, wait, and then you were talking about how much you loved them. And I thought this was a goof. But then I realized like, no, he's actually totally in.
It happens. And it happened to me too. I hated Steely Dan in high school and in my youth. Yeah. Another group that happened with, to me, except I didn't hate them. I was always dismissive of them, but something triggered as the Doobie Brothers. As an adult, as a mature adult, I really have learned to appreciate the Doobie Brothers.
That's great. That's great. The Doobie Brothers. Yeah. I did have, so the Smashing Pumpkins spot held by Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness had to duke it out a little bit with Tool. And I've never known how to pronounce this out. Is it Anima or is it Enema? It's like AE. Yeah, that's the one where I like that one. That was like kind of a great angry college album that I was way into. So it kind of, I thought about, but I ended up thinking Melancholy and Infinite Sadness is just a more interesting artistic work. Some newer stuff.
I'm looking at my saved albums on Spotify.
Yeah.
See what else? I know I'm missing. There's going to be a bunch that are like, oh man, I should have said that one. But
there's so many. I love Iron and Wine. My favorite album is The Shepherd's Dog, if anyone's familiar with that.
Iron and Wine played with an artist named Jessica Hoop. that I suggest you guys go check out her stuff.
Yes, Jessica Hoop's also great.
Yeah, we've seen her live many times.
I think I saw her open for Iron and Wine once.
Well, she toured with them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, my wife saw it. I didn't see that tour, but my wife got to go to that.
This is a Mary Jackson asking, did any good albums come out in the last 20 years? As a matter of fact, I would say Iron and Wine.
Yes, there are. But I got one that's not. This was on my honorable mention. Songs from the Big Chair. Tears for Fears. That's on my
Tears for Fears. That would have also been a good nostalgia pick. But for the last 20 years, I'm also going to throw one of my current faves, Patrick Watson, the album Adventures in Your Own Backyard, which I know she's familiar with because we went and saw him live.
Okay, I got one that came out within the last 10 years. PJ Harvey, Let England Shake. I listened to the album a billion times at least. It's fantastic. So Let England Shake. Go check that out. Go look that up.
There's one. This is a very hipster thing to say, but this is a small band. They're not together anymore, but you can find them. They're all on Spotify. Birds and Batteries was a band I was way into. The album I'll Never Sleep Again. Very, very good.
Birds and Batteries, you said? Birds
and Batteries. Gary, I always took you for Aphex Twin guy for some reason. You know, I'm not anti, but they wouldn't have cracked into my top 5.
Talking Heads, Remain in Light. I know that's old.
Talking Heads, yeah, that's a good, you know.
I don't know if that would make my top 20 though, but so maybe that's just a good. I just saw it right now, and that's a good album.
I mentioned Fiona Apple. When the Pawn is a great album. What else? I think those are some good highlights of, and then after that you get into greatest hits stuff, and that's why it didn't get picked. Like, for example, my mom had a Fleetwood Mac greatest hits album on a loop growing up.
That's a good one.
And it made me love Stevie Nicks. But here's the thing, I was just talking about this the other day. In my opinion, I love Fleetwood Mac, one of my favorite bands. I feel like they don't have a great, this is maybe a hot take, but they don't have a great album. They have albums with 3 or 4 great songs and then a lot of stuff I don't care about.
Gary.
Okay. I know that's a hot take. That's my take. My favorite. The problem is that I was raised on the greatest hits.
Not only do they have one album that stands out, it's on everyone's top 10 of all time list. Rumors.
Everyone says Rumors, but there are songs that I love of theirs that aren't on Rumors.
Oh, absolutely. Some of their best songs. Please go check out a song by Fleetwood Mac called "I Walk a Thin Line."
Yes.
Such a good song. It's a good
songs. Also, my problem, and this is why I'm not a great Fleetwood Mac fan. I'm a fan. I'm not a great fan. I love Stevie Nicks. I don't care about anybody else doing vocals. So, like, really, I'm kind of a Stevie Nicks fan.
You're a snob. I love Stevie Nicks, though, too. She's amazing. Oh, Cisco, the Thong album. That it just barely.
Are you being serious, or are you?
I don't know if there is a Cisco Thong album.
Yeah,
I know that.
Okay.
Well, I know there's a lot of albums that I'm not thinking of. If you go to my childhood, there should be like 5 or 6 Kiss albums there, including "Hotter Than Hell" and "Love Gun."
Yeah,
but I won't do that because I'm not 9 years old anymore.
So here's a good way to close.
Okay.
The rule was no greatest hits, no compilations.
Yeah.
You had to pick your favorite greatest hit or compilation album of all time. What would it be?
Of all time, I would say that would have to be. I think we said it earlier. I'm going to defer to you, Gary, because I think I mentioned it earlier and I can't think of it now.
Now, this wouldn't rank in my top 5, but if I had to pick my favorite compilation.
Does that include soundtracks? Because if it's soundtracks, it's easy.
I think soundtracks is a separate.
Compilations, greatest hits.
Yeah, this is a greatest hits question. And if we're doing greatest hits, I think
I have
I
one
gotta
one
go.
more album that really was in my top 20.
Okay, all right.
Marvin Gaye, "Hear My Dear." The album he made during his divorce settlement, and he just had to give all the proceeds to his wife. So they're all songs about divorce. It's cold-blooded, but it's really
Yeah,
it's
that
a
is kind of
beautiful
great.
soundtrack. Yeah.
Okay, but do you like the story, or do you
No,
like the album?
it's completely the melody, and
Okay, okay.
there's a lot of
Because it's a great story.
Canaan
It'd be
voice.
understandable if you were like,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorites.
Plus Marvin Gaye, my number one vocalist of all time, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, back to
I think my favorite greatest hits. Boy, now I'm second guessing.
who were you gonna say?
I was gonna say Moody Blues. The Moody Blues greatest hits album is pretty great.
Oh, I know mine.
But I think I'm going to default to actually Fleetwood Mac based on what I was just saying.
Okay.
Like, I think if you take their best tracks of all time, it's like a monster list. It's really good, really strong.
All right.
So what would yours be?
Mine would be Knocked Down, Getting Back Up, the greatest hits of Chumbawamba. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm sorry. Did I blow your mind?
You really did. I was trying to think how to even respond to that.
My greatest hits album, I just listened to it earlier this year, is going to have to be Journey's greatest hits.
You know what? I thought of it. I thought about that. Like, that would definitely be like probably in the top 3 greatest hits.
It was scary when I listened to it. Remember we were talking about Journey, and I was like, I've always been a mild Journey fan. Like I've always.
Well, I think it's Corey Kerr's favorite band. If I'm correct, if I'm remembering correctly, it's his favorite band of all time.
Well, he has tattoos of them. That's why.
That's right. That's right.
So, but I mean, remember he said want us to call him Corey Kearney, you know, but
that I do remember him. I refused to do it, but
I didn't want to do that. Yeah. No, what was scary about listening to Journey's greatest hits, besides that, Corey would say I was listening to Journey's greatest hits, is every song on it is you're like, oh my God, I love this song. I mean, if you like Journey, I love this song. You forget how many Journey songs you actually love.
They had so many great. Well, and Tom Petty's greatest hits would also be a monster album.
Yeah,
of just like killers one after another. But he reminds me of another one now. It's like, I don't know. What about Queen's greatest hits?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's
a strong.
You know what though? I still would put Journey's greatest hits because of consistency. Because everyone, okay, Queen's greatest hits, you're gonna have a 10, 9, 4, 7, 8. Journey
be all over the place.
Journey's was 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 8, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 8.
Yeah. I think of these 3 that he named. Tom Petty is tough. I have a soft spot for Tom Petty, but I think it would be between. I have more of an attachment to Tom Petty and Journey than I do Queen, even though Queen, you could make a strong argument. Mm-hmm. So soundtrack. I love the soundtrack, especially as a Radiohead geek. I love the soundtrack for There Will Be Blood by Johnny Greenwood.
That's a good one. Pulp Fiction has a great soundtrack.
Pulp Fiction has got to be in that list.
Yeah. I already said Purple Rain. That would probably be my number 1. But I'm going to give a big shout out here and just say, I'm going to say it. Number 1, out of nostalgia, would have to be, I'm going to say Grease. Because I was thinking Saturday Night Fever out of nostalgia, but Olivia just passed away, so I'm going to say Grease.
Grease. Well, now you got me thinking. What about like Rocky Horror Picture Show? Is that too obvious?
No, that's a good one. Well, that's going to make the top 10. But I mean, for me, I'm not as familiar with Rocky Horror Picture Show as a lot of people.
See,
but I can recognize it though.
What is on the Crow soundtrack? Chris, throw out some. I don't think I ever even saw The Crow. I don't.
Frank Salazar says the Beaches soundtrack.
Yeah, the Beaches soundtrack, and then he's "Wind Beneath My Wings Makes Me Weep." I don't believe that. I don't believe that, Frank. I think that's a fib.
Frank has human feelings.
No, Frank? No.
Yes.
Chris,
Wait,
hit us with
Does
some.
Frank question: does Frank like Steely Dan?
He said yes. Yeah, and he said he's a former cholo. So he said, I guess that counts.
Former cholo, Frank Salazar.
This one actually went longer than the first top 5.
Yeah, which
I did not expect. I thought like we're really going to gab about movies. I didn't realize this would be like a real. So we don't know what our next top 5 will be, and we don't know when our next top 5 will be.
We know it will be.
What's that?
It will be, though.
There will be one.
There will be one.
Maybe in 2 weeks, maybe. Like
whatever we feel like doing it, we do it.
We've played with a lot of topics. We haven't settled on one yet. So
Yes.
when we do, there'll be an announcement, and then Frank assuring us that he can feel because he can believe.
So what have we learned today? We've learned that Journey is a very, very, very dense band when it comes to their greatest hits. Yeah. We've learned that cholos love Steely Dan. Mm-hmm. And we've learned that Kid A is going to be listened to by me this week heavily.
Which I recommend anybody listen to Kid A.
Yeah.
And do it. And this is my plea to all of you. Don't shuffle. You start with track 1 and listen to it as one complete piece of music, if you can. One complete artistic piece that happens to be a bunch of little individual pieces. It's a journey. It's a musical journey you're going on.
As his journey. All right, let's leave with this one piece. Okay. Give one album as a homework assignment to the audience to go listen to all the way through that wasn't in our top 5.
Oh, well, I'm going to shout out one of my current faves. So it's too new to be all time. Because remember, all time is sort of like the big albums. I would say check out Patrick Watson's Adventures in Your Own Backyard. Please check out Patrick Watson. If there's a current artist I'm like way into, it's Patrick Watson. So.
Well, great. You had to give a current one. Now I'm going to sound old. Oh, boy. Okay. Do I stick with my gut?
I think you go with your gut. We're giving them different ends of the spectrum. I'm giving them something new. You're giving them.
All right. I'm going to tell you this. Go out.
What is it?
Go to Spotify. Go wherever you find your streaming music, and go listen to Beck's "The Information."
Okay.
That's it's my favorite Beck album.
Almost any Beck, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, but The Information, I think it's produced by the same guy who produced, I believe, Kid A.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't see. You know all the producers. I'm afraid I don't. So.
Well, I have their numbers on my phone. That's why.
Hello,
hold on, Dr. Dre. No Need for a House Call this week. Out. Lujan out. So.
All right.
Before
we go,
yes, sir.
Should we remind everybody what show they're watching?
What would that show be?
I'll tell you what it is.
I love music. Music's better than drawing.
Yeah. All right. I think that's all I've got to say. What about you?
I think thank you everybody for watching, and go listen to some music.
Another one in the can. Good night, everybody. Go listen to some music for sure.
A great album by Queen. Another one in the can.